Good. Take us back to the mid-90s when you arrived at Blackpool. Just paint a picture of what Bloomfield Road and the club and the training ground was like at that time.
I don't think the training ground's changed a lot from when I last went up there a couple of years ago. So that hasn't changed. But the ground has massively from what it is now. And I when I came in, there was all the promises of a brand new stadium. I think it was a Windike Farm they were talking about under Owen Oyston. So they were showing me the plans of that and moving there. So it was the old ground with the open side. Not like it is today, not as tidy as it is today. I'm sure there'll be some young fans who still moan about the ground and the facilities, but back then, it's like Wembley now.
Saying about obviously the stand. I spoke to Tony Rodwell a few weeks ago, and he was like, when he joined the club, they were trying to pitch the new stadium to him, and he was like, I just care about the football. Players just care about the football. Was it you quite similar?
Yeah, yeah, in a way, because I played at the same level for Stockport and then got to move to Crystal Palace in the Premier League. So I played a season in the Premier League and then I was going to drop back down. Um, and then I possibly could have gone to a Championship club, but uh, I suppose that did make a bit of a difference because it looked like Blackpool were a club that were on the way up and all the investment was there. And to be fair, at that point, Owen Oyston was putting quite a bit of money into the club and signing players. So that was part of the attraction as well. Felt like Blackpool were going to be a progressive club. Sam Allardyce had taken over. And obviously the history of the club as well. So it felt like a little bit of a sleeping giant, and I fancied the challenge there.
What was it like for you personally at that time? Obviously, you'd played in the north before, Stockport and Wrexham. You'd gone down south, stepped up a level, then to return to the northwest. What was, yeah, that sort of like that move?
It was quite a smooth move, really. I I was used to the area, used to the level. Um, so I come with a lot of enthusiasm and really looking forward to it. And I remember when I went in and we were talking with some of the staff there, and saying so many players that end up staying in Blackpool, and I'm another one. I've never moved since. So I've been here, pretty much 30 years. So um, it's that sort of place where you do feel settled. It's a friendly town, and somewhere where all my kids have grown up as well.
What is it particular about it that just makes it stand out? And how soon did you sort of feel that vibe that you was going to be here for the long term in the town?
I weren't so sure after, early on. I had quite a tough time early on, with the fans and stuff like that. There was just a little bit of a disconnect. So it was tough at the start. It wasn't an easy transition when I was started playing and we started the games. But I had good friends up here who I was teammates with, Andy Morrison, and our families were really close. So that always helps when you've got people who are really close to you. But I just always found that the people friendly, welcoming. But there were some of the fans who didn't like me, especially at the start.
Is it one of those things in football that you have to prove yourself to fans, but once it clicks and once they see something in you and see that you're giving your all, is that when, there's a strong bond there?
I think that was the case because when someone comes and they've come from the Premier League and I scored a lot of goals at Stockport, and if you don't start and hit the ground running, then that then questions are going to be asked of you. The Blackpool paid money; they don't expect me to be one of the top players and scoring goals week in week out. And although I started, although I said I didn't start that well, but back then they didn't count assists and things like that. But in when I got left out of the team, I think I had 8 goals, 8 assists, and we'd scored 21 goals or something, and I got dropped. These days, you would like that's never going to happen. But it was a little bit on, felt that I wasn't working hard enough, or and I'd probably at that time I'm thinking about goals and trying to score goals and rather than being outside the box and running channels. And nowadays you want people in the box and scoring goals rather than running channels and getting out wide. And it was probably a little bit different that, back then. It was more about running around. And sometimes, and you didn't have your stats to back up what you were doing. So, I had to earn that, and, I gradually over time, I earned that. And I remember Sam saying towards the end of the season, he said, I don't know, I don't know whether I prefer the Andy Preece scoring goals week in, week out, or the Andy Preece who's running every blade of grass. Because, I didn't score as many goals when I was doing that. And that's probably why, because I probably wasn't in the right areas to get on the end of crosses or creating chances for myself.
Did you feel that bit of pressure to perform, and do you feel like you was held to a higher standard because you'd come from a Premier League club?
I don't know. Ultimately, you look, you've got to score goals and you've got to create and you've got to work hard. You've got to do everything. You've got to earn that. And like I said, over time, I did that. And turn things right round. But by the end, I'd captained the club and got got numerous Player of the Year awards. So. Um, it's about your character. You've got to earn the respect of the fans. You can't expect to be given it, and over time, he did that.
What was it like to be captain of a club? How much pride did you take from that?
Unbelievable. For me, I never captain a club before, so to put on that armband, that is just an extra responsibility, and you feel like you are the leader of the team, and that little you need to be aware a little bit more and give that little bit extra, whatever it is, time. Speaking to the fans and getting that connection and making sure all those things are right. So for me, it was an unbelievable honour. Every time I stepped out as captain, I was absolutely buzzing, and yeah, it was one of the highlights of my career to put on that armband because. Probably early on in my career, I never thought myself as a captain, but as I went on, I sort of got those leadership skills, and probably um, being captain at Blackpool probably led me into coaching and management.
Is it a symbolism of a journey you went on at Blackpool in some ways? Like you said, early on you were scoring the goals, getting the assists. Individually, you was doing well, but there was question over, you could run a little bit more, be in different areas. So that is sort of a symbol of journey you went on that, you became captain, that more all-rounded leader.
It's just the way it can go. You see it all the time, and there's ups and downs. And look, you're always going to get fans that criticize you, whatever you do. You always get fans who stick by you with whatever you do. And look, you've just got to do the best that you can. And thankfully. When I walk through Blackpool now, and the odd person, because there's not so many that remember me now, stop me. They talk about fond memories, so that's really nice as well. So yeah, it is a journey that you will go on as a player. Very rarely you get that real smooth career where everything goes right, and you're going to have adversity at times, and you've got to come through it. And I look back at my Blackpool time as a great learning curve, not just in playing but in management as well. But I look on it fondly, and we although we never. We didn't never make them playoffs. We were always up and around. Sorry, we made the playoffs in the first season, but we never got promoted. We were always up and around it, and pushing at the top of the league. So, it's a reasonably successful time because at that point, Blackpool, hadn't had a great amount of success at that level. So, we had a strong team and probably should have got promoted.
Do you enjoy going back when obviously time allows you and just seeing the place again? I know you said not many people who you'll know there now, but to see those who you do.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable place to go, and the atmosphere is so different now. It's really changed from when the team's gone into the Premier League. You can see that they've kept a lot of fans and kept that atmosphere. The atmosphere there at Bloomfield Road is unbelievable. When it's buzzing and things are going right on the pitch and everybody's behind the team, it's an incredible atmosphere. It's something I think about. Oh, that'd be great to be out there on the pitch again. But we had our moments. We had some big games. I remember playing Man City at home and beating them, and I think I don't know if I got the winner, but I definitely scored in that game. So we had a real passionate crowd back then that got behind us and made it difficult for teams to play at Bloomfield Road, and we did have a really good home record. So it has changed a little bit. And obviously the actual ground itself and the stands and everything, it's a really nice stadium now.
You mentioned the manager who signed a couple of times, Sam Allardyce. What was he like? Obviously, very early in his coaching career, and could you sort of foresee what he'd go on to be?
You never know about going on to where he ended up going and being England manager, although it's for a short time and now well he did at Bolton, but he was well ahead of his time. He was incredible. His attention to detail. He started off with um, people coming in and doing warm-ups. So we were wondering what's going on. Why is someone else coming in to do our warm-ups? Because you didn't have your sports science and things like that. You weren't used to that. Sometimes we used to go out and warm up and you'd just be running around and banging balls against crossbar and stuff like that. He was well ahead of his time. Drinks after games and before and after games. When I think back, I think he was probably 10, 15 years ahead of his time. And he gets a bad press about long ball and this and that. We weren't a long ball team. We played some unbelievable football at that time. Um, and he was just a bit unfortunate, just the way the circumstances went. We should have got promoted on the last. Well, we could have got promoted on the last day. I remember at half time at York, we were 1-0 up, and Oxford were drawing, and at that point we were promoted. And then Oxford went and ended up winning 5-0, so we went in the playoffs. Then we were 2-0 up in the playoff against Bradford and lost that 3-0 at home. And for me, there wasn't a lot that he could do about that. He got us into the position to get promoted, and we didn't get over the line. And I felt that it was more our fault than his fault. And I do believe if he had stayed, we'd have gone up the next season. So yeah, full of respect, admiration, learnt a lot off Sam, and he went on to have a fantastic career.
Yeah, I know it's the same with any industry. Time moves on, and obviously new ideas come in. But I've heard quite a few people saying he was ahead of the game. He knew so many. He was so modern at that time. When you obviously think of him now, people say, "Oh, he's old school." But so it's
Yeah.
quite just that he was ahead of the game.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird. Look, it's perceptions, and people just get a perception of him. If you look at the players, he had like JJ Kocher and people like that, French Djorkaeff and French internationals. They're proper footballers. The Aero, you know, they, uh, I don't get it. I don't get that. But once you get sort of tarred with a brush, then it seems to stick. So he had that, pretty much, especially at the back end of his career. So think he's a bit unlucky with that, but he was definitely way ahead of his time. And some of the things we like were sort of almost like thinking, why are we doing this? And now like everybody's doing this. Is what this is what we should have done. He was making us better. He was improving us, and especially the mental side of the game. He brought people in to talk to us about mentality and things like that. And at that point, it wasn't a thing in the game. So like a lot of lads were just, what are we doing this for? There's nothing wrong with my mentality, and I'm all right in that. But it's massive, and just that just shows how bright he was, and yeah, well ahead of his time.
You also had Nigel Worthington. What was he like as a coach?
Yeah, he was the one who gave me the captaincy, and you've got Gary Megson in the middle. For me, chalk and cheese. I didn't get on with Gary Megson. He didn't like me from day one, and we never hit it off. Although I think I had my best goal scoring season under him. Eventually when he had to put me in the team, and it got to a point where he had to put me in the team, and that's why I say that I felt that we would have, if Sam had stayed, we would have got promoted because he came in and wanted to change it and do it his own way, and ultimately he almost went back to Sam's team, and we went from, I don't know, we must have been near the bottom, to just missing out on the playoffs very late on. So when, I was pleased to see Nigel Worthington come in, and yeah, he was great with me. Really enjoyed it. Again, a really good coach. And he had Mick Innigan with him, who was a fantastic character, who just made you laugh constantly. Um, and again, we had a half decent season, but just missed out again on the playoffs.
Mentioned that relationship, and obviously you want a good relationship with a coach. But you think sometimes does it drive you to be better when it is maybe more of a frosty relationship? You think of maybe Gerrard and Benitez. Gerrard said he didn't feel loved by him, but played his best football of his career. So is it very much you are driven to prove coaches wrong
Yeah.
sometimes?
You can be very clever in the way that you do. Look at what about Jude Bellingham at the minute. You know, he was having a difficult. It looks like he wouldn't even get in the squad, let alone play. And then he starts first game. Is that too called being really clever with that? Was that always the plan? To make him hungry, not to allow him to feel like that comfort, getting that comfort zone. So yeah, 100%. It can turn the other way where you want to prove somebody wrong. And it 100% with Gary Megson, that I wanted to prove him wrong, that I should be in the team. But I think that's the way you should be anyway. You should be uh, trying to prove the manager wrong. Doesn't mean you have to not have you can still have a relationship with a manager and him leave you out, and you still want to prove him wrong. Um, but I didn't have he was probably the only manager I didn't really have a relationship with. I always got on with all my managers, whether they left me out or not. Sam left me out. I still had a really good relationship with him. Just some people you just don't hit it off with. So yeah, there's a big part in that, and it's understanding. I think that's where your man management comes in, is understanding the player, what gets them motivated, and that's a big part of management. So yeah, 100%. It can be used very cleverly.
You're always observing managers and coaches, seeing what they did. 'Cause obviously you've been a coach for such a long time now, so you always sort of building up to that and knew that was the path you was going to take.
I was always interested in that man management side, and how managers dealt with me and how they talked to me, and um, how they behaved around the players, and I got so many different managers that I've worked with. Neil Warnock. If you look at Neil Warnock, Sam Allardyce, Gary Megson, Nigel Worthington, Brian Flynn, totally different characters, totally different in the way that they managed and coached. I've been very lucky to have those managers who have done really well in the game, and have had a lot of experience. So Yeah, so I think more subconsciously than consciously, because I think it was only probably at Blackpool and moving on that I started to think about managing coaching. But I do go back and think about some of the things that they did, and there's lots of things happening, back in the 90s and early 2000s that are relevant today that I can use in my management.
26 years is it since you first took that plunge? Are you still loving it as much as you always did?
It's it's always difficult. Every season is a challenge with whatever. Whether you're challenging to win leagues, whether you're challenging to get into playoffs, whether you're challenging to stay in a league, whether you got money, whether you haven't got money. There's always the same challenges. So yeah, I feel fresh still. I don't feel like it's been 26 years, but it's sort of flown by. Um, yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I just enjoy being around players and helping develop players and seeing players move on and having that buzz with the crowd when you win a game. I've always been that sort of player. As you probably see with a lot of my celebrations, it's straight to the crowd, because I was a massive fan when I was growing up. So I know how much it means. So um, yeah, that you just can't be that buzz when that final whistle goes and you've won, and especially when after the game when you're going around and you're clapping the fans and you can see that the buzz on their face and the enjoyment and the smiles, and you can't beat it. It's a fantastic industry to be in. Yeah, it can go the other way, and you can be walking around and people are booing you, maybe sticking the fingers up at you or shouting obscenities at you. That, yeah, that's part of the game as well. And you've got to you got to take that. But majority of the time it's been the other way where you're coming off and clapping the fans. So yeah, the buzz is still there, and hopefully still a fair few years ahead of me.
Yeah, just finally, obviously, we're on the cusp of another pre-season, so you're excited for that, and have you got your clear target set out for next season?
Yeah, we don't look. Our targets are always to try, it's to try and get in the playoffs and try and get promoted. It gets more difficult year in year out for us because the National League North is getting more and more professional with more full-time teams coming into it. So it just makes it that little bit harder for us year in year out. But we've been really successful over the past few years. We got to the playoffs, got through to well, we have eliminate. I think the football league's having eliminators now. So we've got to the eliminator 2 seasons in a row. Got through that and lost to the two teams that got promoted. So for us, that's unbelievable success, and it's great. It's a great place to be when it's like that, because when you're sort of overachieving and producing players on top of that. We've had players that have moved on to the football league. Um, for me personally, it's really satisfying that you can do that and develop players and sell players on. Last season was a season where we didn't make the playoffs. The first time we hadn't. So this season, we want to get back to where we've been in the previous season, but it'll be difficult, and we'll have to be lucky a little bit with injuries and make sure our recruitment's right, and our recruitment's been really good over a long period of time, and that's probably the reason why we've been successful.